Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another segment of It's Getting Real. I stumbled upon this case completely by accident. I was watching Snapped and I heard the name Gregory and I typed in Gregory thinking that I would find that case. And instead I found another one that I had never heard of before. And due to what I read about the case, I just had to find more. I didn't find a whole bunch about his background. And if I'm being honest, I really don't care because I feel like we have to stop making excuses for the reasons why people do the things that they do. There have been many of people who have been through some very traumatic experiences, and it does not turn into what this turned into. And as far as I can tell, the little bit that I did find, there wasn't anything that would show that he would lead to this route. There's no explanation for it. But let's go ahead and get into the case because this one is going to make you upset. It might make you cry. But I just feel like we need to talk about it. Gregory Vincent Green was born on December 10th, 1966. He was raised in a religious family. I don't know how many siblings he has. I know that his mother and father were very involved in his life and that he at least has a sister. Other than that, there's not very much about his childhood. By the time Gregory is in his early 20s, he meets a woman by the name of LaTanya Clayton, later Green. The two fall in love and they get married around the year of 1989. Now, LaTanya previously had 2 children from another relationship. And before long, she becomes pregnant with Gregory's child. It seems as though the couple is beginning to build a family together and that they're doing well. But the truth is, their marriage isn't doing well because Gregory's behavior has become increasingly concerning. He is controlling and violent and aggressive towards his wife, LaTanya. Because this is too much for her and she's tired of it, LaTanya ends up confiding in a friend that she has plans to leave Gregory's controlling butt. But unfortunately, she never got a chance. Because on July 14th, 1991, Gregory attacks her in their Detroit home. In an angry fit, he grabs a steak knife and brutally stabs LaTanya 10 times. Now, I need you to keep this in mind because this is someone who I just told you took out a steak knife, stabbed his woman who was pregnant with their unborn child multiple times. This man is going to get sentenced to jail, but he's going to get out. And because he's let out, another violent act is going to occur. Let's get into it. So he stabs her in the neck and in the face and in the chest and in the back, all while her 2 young children, who are 5 and 8, are in the home hearing the sounds. Now, thankfully, they are not harmed physically. And I say physically because I can't begin to imagine the emotional harm that this has done to them, because not only have they lost their mother, but they've been forced to hear the sounds as their mother is being attacked and later dies. So LaTanya, unfortunately, and her unborn child do not survive at the time she was 6 months pregnant. Gregory picks up the phone, calls 911 to report what he had done. When the cops arrive, he says hello to them, says, "I stabbed her. She's in the kitchen." And then he shows them to the refrigerator where he stashed away the murder weapon. It's so callous. It's so calculated, in my opinion. And it just shows the way that he did it and what he said, that he truly had no remorse for his actions. Gregory ends up pleading no contest to second-degree murder for the stabbing of his pregnant wife. He is given a 15 to 20-year prison sentence in 1992 for the murder. 20 years for murder, in my opinion, is never enough. And the violence in it, and the fact that he hit her with that weapon 10 times, and the fact that not only she but her baby were unalived, you only gave him 20 years? We got to stop picking and choosing who we give grace to, who we give second chances to, because in some instances, in my opinion, second chances shouldn't happen. So during the court proceedings, his mother, I believe her name was Tommy, writes a judge asking for leniency for her son, saying, "I don't believe Gregory is a threat to society." What the hell is she talking about? Your son picked up a knife and stabbed a woman 10 times with her children in the other room overhearing this, all because of his anger. And you don't think that that makes him a threat to society? This woman that is no longer on this earth at some point probably thought that too. And as far as I'm concerned, his mother who wrote this letter is part of the problem, because here's the thing. Let's be honest. We're parents, and as parents, or as people who have loved ones, you may protect them to a certain extent, but you got to be honest when it comes to stuff like this. When it comes to crime and murder and things of that nature, you can't play coy. You can't sit here and act like, oh, he just made a mistake. No, that's not a mistake. She continued, "I don't believe a long sentence will make him any better, because he has suffered already and he will continue to suffer the rest of his life. I'm confused. What exactly is he suffering from?" LaTonya didn't do anything to him but desired to leave him, which shows to me the fact that his mom is sitting here talking about him suffering, that she's full of sugar honey iced tea, just like her son. So he's serving time. It's said that during the time that he's locked up, that they feel like he's a model prisoner, with the exception of one instance where he had an altercation in 2002. He got into a fist fight with another inmate over a television, but he completed educational programs and he kept his head down and he played by the rules. He repeatedly appears before the parole board as you're granted, and he's denied again and again and again and again, 4 times, because the parole board said that he didn't show any remorse, because according to officials, he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. He was blaming his wife LaTonya for what happened. So the parole board reiterates to him that his lack of empathy and his lack of remorse is the reason why he's still there. In my opinion, they gave him the recipe to get out, because Gregory does what a lot of them do, and he worked the system. It's my opinion. Y'all tell me yours. So he decides that he's going to start going back to church, and he's going to turn his life over to God. And he's reaching out to his old pastor, and his old pastor is coming to visit him because his old pastor has a prison ministry, and he's doing all the things that he needs to do to ensure that he gets out. So in a move that he probably regrets now, Pastor Fred Harris speaks on behalf of Gregory, sending several letters in to the board about him. Now, I don't know much about Pastor Fred Harris, but from what is said, he was a civil rights type of person, and this was right in his field house, right? So he wrote multiple letters to the Michigan Parole Board, vouching for Gregory and talking about how he's transformed and how he's not the person he was, insisting that they give Gregory another chance, because if they give Gregory another chance, then he would become a valued member of society and an active participant in the church and community. Let me read part of the letter that he wrote in August 2005. Gregory and I were friends before this mishap, and he was incarcerated. Mishap. Killing someone, in my opinion, is not a mishap. Maybe as far as self-defense goes, but that's a whole nother story. In this situation, the way this thing transpired, it wasn't a mishap. It was calculated. So I'm side-eyeing Pastor Harris just off of that. I love the Lord, but I got to be honest. When it comes to certain things, I do not feel like people should have chances. Let me continue. He was a member of our church. I feel he has paid for his unfortunate lack of self-control and the damage he has caused as much as possible and is sorry. How did he pay for it? Because he got locked away and because taxpayers were paying for his food and because he got his 3 meals in a cot. I don't know what it's called, but is that how he paid for it? Did he show remorse to the family? Is he sending the children that he did this in front of anything? Is there restitution involved? Like, what has been done? Not that that would change anything, to show that he understands what he did and that he realizes the damage that he caused. No amount of years, no amount of time, no amount of money can pay for that. So he goes before the parole board, Gregory does, for the 5th time. And his parents are there to speak on his behalf as always. And they let it be known that if he is released, that he will be welcomed back to their home. That his church is standing behind him, that he hasn't gotten into any trouble. They even had officers at the prison writing in for him. So, between the pastor, officials, his parents, his sister, and other friends and family, Gregory Green is granted parole in 2008 after serving only 16 years. 16 years is a long time, but it's not long, in my opinion, when it comes to things like this. So he gets a job and he attends church, and at church he gets extremely close to the pastor's daughter, Faith. This isn't a surprise because Faith knew Gregory when she was younger, in her teens. Gregory was always on her radar, and Faith still had feelings for him. Now, I don't think that Faith had it all up here, and I'm going to try really, really hard not to blame her for what happened in this situation because she didn't look into it. She was a church girl that believed in forgiveness and didn't take certain steps that I personally would have taken. Faith still has feelings for him. She knew he wasn't around because he had been in prison, but she didn't take the time to look into his case. I feel like it's dumb because when it comes to bringing any man around myself or my children, I'm going to do my due diligence to find out what you got going on, especially because at that time she had 2 teenage kids, a son and a daughter. So you know that this man has been incarcerated. You need to look into it and see why he was incarcerated. What if it was for touching children or something like that? You wouldn't know because you didn't look. That's dumb. She should have looked. So 2 years after his release, he is now married to Faith, the daughter of Pastor Fred Harris, who helped to get him out of jail. They marry on December 18th, 2010. They are now a family of 4, and they continue to go to church. And Faith eventually becomes pregnant, giving birth to 2 more daughters named Coy and Kaylee. Now, everything is going well, or so it appears. They're living in the suburbs, and they appear to be a happy, blended family. They look like an ideal family, but things were going on once again behind the scenes, much like how they were in his first marriage. Now, there is little documentation on what exactly happened, but we're told that there was a lot of anger in the home and that he would often take out his rage on furniture or do things to scare Faith. At a gala by First Step of Domestic Violence, which was a nonprofit, Faith shared, with Gregory, some days it was good and some days it was bad. He was often quiet and moody. He never hit me. It always was verbal and mental torment. I think that's one of the things that we have to remember is when it comes to abuse, it doesn't just have to be physical. It can be sexual, it can be emotional, it can be financial, and it can be psychological. And oftentimes that psychological aspect of it isn't taken seriously enough. So Faith, we're told, ends up leaving him off and on during their marriage, but she always returned hoping that things would be better, hoping that the mood swings would change and that his behavior would stop, but it never did. In February 2013, she tries to get a personal protection order, known as a PPO, against him in Wayne County Circuit Court, alleging, "He's trying to make me leave our home. We're filing for divorce. He's being belligerent, kicking things. He kicked the couch while the baby was sleeping on it, just kicking things, threatening me and saying if I don't leave, things are going to get ugly. He jumped at me like he was going to attack me. This went on for hours." Unfortunately, in their eyes, this wasn't enough. But what I do not understand is why in the PPO request that Faith never mentioned his past. She did not say anything about how he unalived his previous wife. And for whatever reason, I don't know the logistics of all of that, they didn't see it. She was turned down by Judge Deborah Ross Adams. She denied the petition stating that there was insufficient allegations for a PPO at the time. From my understanding, if a person requests a PPO, they must present evidence against the person that they're trying to protect themselves against. And in some cases, maybe the judge might have changed her mind if she would have known more about Gregory's past criminal history. I personally feel like it's something that they should look up automatically, but I don't know how that works. If you guys know, put it down below. From what I understand, that judge was later terminated. I don't know if it has to deal with this case or not. So she goes back to him and things are what they are for a few months. And then she files for divorce in August of 2016, saying that the marriage could not be fixed. Now, despite her filing for divorce, I believe that they were still residing together because shortly after the divorce and right before the situation occurs, they end up having a birthday party for their 4-year-old daughter, to the point where when police arrived on the scene, those decorations for the party were still outside. So now we're at a month after the divorce filing and the unimaginable happens. The man who his parents and sister and friends and family claimed was safe, the man who changed because of God, showed his true self, which is that he's a monster. On September 21st, 2016, Faith was awoken and forcibly dragged out of bed, taken down to the basement, where she and her oldest two children, 19-year-old Chadney and 17-year-old Cara, are shackled, zip-tied, and led down into the basement. Once downstairs, he uses duct tape and zip ties, as I said, to tie her down. And he shoots Faith in the foot as her children watch. He then takes a razor from a box cutter and slices her across her face from her ear to her mouth. She still has a scar up there. I'm going to probably put that in the thumbnail from where he cut her. The damage is so bad that it caused permanent damage to her face. And if that wasn't enough, he then proceeds to shoot her two children in front of Faith. Execution style. She had to watch her babies die. Gregory's biological children, 5-year-old Coy and 4-year-old Kaylee, were also killed. Assistant Wayne County Prosecutor Trisha Garrod said that Gregory planned the killings while shopping at Home Depot a week before to get supplies. And he used some of those supplies to kill his youngest two children. He filled a car with carbon monoxide while the kids were inside. Investigators found duct tape on the muffler of the car, and a plastic tube was attached to it. He left them in the car with the engine running, and they passed out from the poisoning, and then he later transferred their bodies back into the home. Then, just like he did 25 years prior, he calls 911, admits what he did, and waits for the police to arrive. The police arrive to a horrific scene because you have 4 children that are deceased, and you have Faith full of blood clinging to life. They rush her to the hospital where she eventually recovers, and he has no explanation for doing what he did. He pleads guilty to second-degree murder, torture, and assault with intent to do great bodily harm. He also pled guilty to felony firearm. Now, I don't understand how he was able to plead guilty to second-degree murder when they know that they caught him at Home Depot buying things for said murder. That's planned. That should be first degree, but they went with second for the family's sake. He also had counts of unlawful imprisonment, felon in possession of a firearm, and felonious assault were dropped at the sentencing hearing as part of his plea. In 2017, Judge Hathaway sentenced Gregory Green to 45 to 100 years in prison, plus a further 2 years due to a mandatory weapons charge. In my opinion, he should have gotten the chair, or he should have gotten a death sentence, because he has shown that he is a vile person, because he didn't kill a family just one time. In the first instance, no, he did not kill those other 2 children. But in this instance, he killed 4. 4 lives gone. He won't be eligible for parole until he's 97, excuse me. Faith wasn't happy with his sentence, and I wouldn't be either. I'm going to read some of what she said in the video that I watched, and I'll try to link it down below if I remember. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied with the outcome. There's no punishment that fits the crime. Not even torture and death would be justice. Your justice will come when you burn in hell for all eternity for murdering 4 innocent children, all because you're insecure as a man, plus the other 2 lives that you took before. You're a con artist. You're a monster. You're a devil in disguise. You are now forever exposed. But while I stand up here trembling with fear, I put on my bravest face to be in the same room with the man who murdered all 4 of my children. While she's saying this, he's sitting in front of her, and she's kind of like here while he's sitting here. I think that the judge did this so that she can speak without, being intimidated. I'm not sure. Two of them you murdered violently in front of me with a gun. Chadney and Kara. I will not suffer as you intended. What you did not work. He killed my other 2 babies with a hose that ran from the tailpipe of his car to where they were innocently sleeping. My short-term memory is gone. Every time I find the strength to get out of bed, as soon as I walk, I'm in extreme pain. I have migraines and nightmares, and there are times when I find myself reliving the night over and over and over again. Sometimes I dream of the night all this happened, and I wake up screaming, thinking that I could have saved my children somehow. Then I realize that the nightmare is actually a reality, and my children are really gone. And I try to find the strength to start my day somehow. I miss my children so much that words will never be able to explain. Some days I wish that I had There's a hole in my heart and soul that can never be repaired. This wound will never heal. This wound will never heal. She said all of this without breaking down. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. And while she says all of this, and she said a lot more, I cut some parts out because she even talks about her father and her family and how her father advocated for him and how he hasn't been the same since and how he's had strokes and all these other things, how this destroyed them as a family. And I don't know how she did it, especially with him showing no emotion. The rage that I would have had for him, they would have had to have a bailiff right in front of me. There were times where while attending this whole thing, she was seen sitting in the chair because of the shot that was in her foot. Judge Hathaway, when sentencing Gregory, said that this case was by far the worst she's seen as a judge. She said, fathers are supposed to protect their children. Husbands are supposed to protect their wives. Your actions are inconceivable. The judge added that she had not followed the sentence agreement that he entered into. If she hadn't done it, it would have been a different way. She didn't want to follow the agreement because if she had it her way, he would never been released from prison, which he still isn't going to be technically, but he can appeal this. You see what I'm saying? She said the only reason why she followed the sentence agreement is because it would be better for the family. Because if they had went to trial, it would be a situation where the family would have to relive the horror of the slayings over and over and over again. And that she did not feel like that should happen. I'm telling you all this story because here we have a man that was convicted of a violent crime. And after 16 years, he was released because he said the right things. Studies have shown that the most dangerous time for DV victims is when they try to leave. Escaping an abusive relationship is difficult and it's complex. And I don't know, other than her never engaging with this man, what could have been done to change their fate, because it's very clear that he did what he wanted to do to hurt her and to destroy her. Because you slashed her in her face and you shot her in her foot, but you didn't kill her. You didn't shoot her execution style the way you did the children, his stepchildren. Not only that, he shot them execution style, but he showed his version of mercy by having the others die by poison. I just don't understand it. The story of Gregory Green is a tragic reminder of how domestic violence can escalate and lead to fatal consequences. It's also a reminder that sometimes the justice system unfortunately fails to protect victims by granting parole in dangerous situations, by giving lesser sentences to people just because they may seem to say and do the right things. Gregory's actions have left so many people in a space where they're never going to be the same. And it breaks my heart. Y'all, I will leave some of the links below. It's unfortunate that I have to say rest in peace to so many individuals who didn't deserve this. To Coy, these babies, I guess That's the part that I can't fathom. You didn't just unalive children that were hers. You did it to children that were yours and to this woman. And I just don't feel like Coy and Chadney and Kara and Latanya and I can't remember the other baby's name. I gotta look for that baby's name because it's I said Chadney. I said Kara. Why can't I find the other two babies' names? Kaylee. Coy and Kaylee. They didn't deserve this. They didn't. And unfortunately, what he did to Latanya wasn't enough. They let him out. Y'all, put your thoughts down below. Sorry this got a little disjointed at the end. It's sad. I hope that these babies continue to rest in peace and that their families somehow find ways to continue to live. Until next time.